conspiratorious horde of the new Jacobin Club. And this is the engine room of the great ground ship Gloriana on its maiden voyage across the Western Canadian wastelands in search of the last remaining vestiges of art and culture that our crumbling society has to offer. Dearest marked ones and splendid newcomers, I am not here to waste your time, for time is all we have, and once wasted, it is truly a little death that we experience painlessly now, but regret at the end of our material existence before that uncertain plunge into the void from which none returns. Let's have a look at what's on my bookshelf. You may already be familiar with this controversial item. My favorite thing about it is that the average reader who picks this up is expecting modern storytelling set in the Victorian era with zombies. When in fact, this is still Jane Austen, her own words, her own novel. Seth Grahame-Smith's contributions and alterations merely add the zombie mythos to Austen's original prose. And consequently, it still reads like a 19th century fiction. Hard on some people, I know, but I actually don't really want to talk about this book anyways. I want to shed some light on an entirely original piece of work by the same author, and it is called Unholy Night. In the tradition of alternate history fiction and gritty reimagined settings for timeless fairy tales and legends, this story is a different take on the tale of the Nativity. In particular, the identities of the three wise men who supposedly aided a Jewish-born infant and his young parents escape the town of Bethlehem during a Roman census over 2,000 years ago, during which the mad King Herod was advised that a Messiah had been born unto the Jewish people. His solution? The extermination of all Bethlehem's children under the age of 2. Here is where the identities of the three wise men become very relevant. For it turns out that they themselves are wanted men and have just recently escaped their own executions. It is a bloody and ferocious tale full of graphic details of violence and very well set in time and place. So well described, in fact, and so convincing in its historical accuracy that it is an absolute delight to read. In fact, it is one of those books that you will read in one sitting should you have the luxury and the time. And for the inaugural musical segment of the Horde's Engine Room, we have an international phenomenon coming to us from Paris, France. Victor Sierra's latest full-length is dark and brooding, but not in that tiresome, self-loathing way that you'd expect from a group still proudly carrying the torch of the glorious electric goth days of the past. It is a powerful and moving album, and it is inspiring to listen to beginning to end. Victor Sierra commands power and holds your attention, telling epic stories based on their own post-apocalyptic world, conjuring up images of war-torn landscapes and crumbling Industrial Revolution-era technology. One of the things I love most about the album itself is how it begins, when most bands will invariably place their most energizing and anthematic song first. Victor Sierra begins Go for Strange with the track Unquiet Days, a calm and thoughtful narrative that brings you into their world. In fact, if the album was a soundtrack, this would be the music sounding over an opening credits against a backdrop of an early morning skyline, with the silhouette of a distant yet massive armored airship drawing closer and closer until at last we see its crew standing steadfastly on deck. The album ends as magnificently as it begins, with an ode to this mythical ship, this time on a high note of affirmation. Victor Sierra will sail on and the story will continue. Long life to the Hydrogen Queen!
Unquiet moments.